My name is Jeff.
Hello.
We're live, or are we doing the intro scene right now?
Oh, we're live.
Okay, all right.
Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of the Runway. We got a lot to talk about today, guys. I mean, what an amazing conference, the Bitcoin conference, Scotty. What'd you think?
I loved it. I did 3 of the 4 days.
Yeah.
Saw a lot of great presenters. Didn't get into JD Vance, unfortunately, which I wish I was able to go see. But
Wake up at 4 a.m.
That's what it was. You had to be there 5:30 in the morning for a 9 a.m.
Yeah, man. I think my dad got in there. I think he was in there. But,
He got in there?
Yeah. My name is Jeff. We missed you at the conference, big dog. What happened?
Yeah, stuff.
You know, we had Airbnbs booked. We had rooms booked at the hotels. We had it all. So,
Were you able to get into any of the presentations, or were you doing mostly interviews?
I mean, I hate to say this, bro, but I'm gonna fire my media guy. He fucking booked me nonstop all fucking 3 days. I didn't even get to barely walk around the convention center. I'm like kind of upset, but I'm joking because we got so many great interviews that we're gonna be releasing. We talked to Brock Pierce, Grant Cardone, the Carnivore Man. He's a Dr. Sean Baker. He was a beast. We did a push up.
Clips.
You did, yeah.
Awesome clips. Real good content.
It was great content.
Great setup.
Interviews.
You had like tables and everything.
Yeah, we had it all. Paul, I got to give Paul credit. He packed all the media equipment in the suitcase, carried it in, came in early, set it up. So, I mean, I'm just kidding, but in the future, I'm gonna have to. I gave him access to my schedule. I'm like, bro, book whatever you want, and I made a mistake because he fucking booked nonstop all the fucking conference. I did not even literally get to walk around. I'm like sad about it. I probably walked around for like 20 minutes just to because somebody wanted to talk to me at like one of our partner booths or whatever where we do like a lot of mining stuff with. So it was a fantastic conference. I mean, it was just the vibe in Vegas was amazing. I love the Miami conferences too. So don't get me wrong, Miami, Nashville, every single conference they've had has been amazing, but. I'm kind of glad we're going back to Vegas next year.
It's been confirmed that Vegas is next year?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be back in Vegas next year for sure. It's confirmed.
Nice.
It's absolutely confirmed.
40,000 people, right? I mean, that's
40,000. It seemed like there was more, man. You couldn't even walk around.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Paul, let me know when you can get my screen set up with the take so we can dive into some of this stuff.
How many push-ups did Sean Baker bang out?
He banged out, I think, 62. We've got I think it was 60 or 62. We did like 60 seconds.
Tell me about the push-ups. What's going on with the push-ups?
So we just did a push-up competition. Hold on, let me tweet out this link to this pod real quick.
He's a carnivore diet guy, big into fitness.
So Dr. Sean Baker is he's older. I mean, like to be fair, he's like 50s, 60s. I mean, he's older, but he looks fantastic. Guy has got some pipes on him. He's got a long reach. I feel like he could do like an MMA for like like senior citizen MMA. He would crush.
He's a huge dude.
He would fucking crush. But so we did a push-up competition. I think it was me, Selly, and Dr. Baker. And it was how many push-ups can you do in the minute? In 1 minute.
In a minute.
Yeah. So Selly was on the liquid alcohol diet. Dr. Sean Baker's on the carnivore diet, and I was on the seafood diet. I see food, I eat it. You know what I mean? So it was. We're going to be releasing that soon, probably when Paul's done looking it over and making sure that all the push-ups qualified.
I take back my rookie statement. 62 in a minute is pretty darn good.
It was pretty impressive. Yeah, it was very impressive.
He's dunking a basketball too, I think, at his age, or he was maybe a couple years ago.
No, I mean, look at those arms. If you see him in person, it's like he shakes your hand. It's like, wow, man, that's some carnivore. That's a carnivore handshake right there. But we had a good conversation.
We were supposed to have Robert Breedlove join the competition, but he bailed out last minute.
He bailed out. What happened? Do we ever figure out what happened?
He hasn't told me why, but it was the second day in Vegas, 9 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
So
and I went to bed early, woke up early, but yeah, you guys you stressed me. I was working the whole time.
Yep, squeezing every drop. But it was a fantastic event. I'd do it over again in a heartbeat. A lot of great content coming out. And to those that won tickets, unfortunately, we were so slammed that we didn't get to actually coordinate a meet and greet.
Mm-hmm.
I meant to set that up, but next year.
Yeah. We also, the Wi-Fi was really bad. We were going to try to do like a runway pod while we were there. I know Paul had kind of talked to some of us about it, but we just couldn't like do anything live because like, there was freaking scammers like setting up fake Wi-Fis, and the Wi-Fi was just everything was like so oversaturated that like there was no way it would have been very difficult to do many things live. I mean that's what kind of the consensus was in the media room. We were like, what the heck, we can barely stream out anything. So because there was just so much going on, like so many great stages and speeches, and just it was wild. It was wild, very wild.
Scotty, did you interview anybody?
Robin Sayer, 6'6" guy from Austria. It was a pretty good interview.
Yeah.
Apparently he didn't introduce himself in the actual interview, but everything else was spot on. 26 years old, and his average viewer's age is 52.
Oh wow.
So it kind of just speaks to his maturity level. He's only been in Bitcoin for 4 or 5 years, but he definitely knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, definitely. We'll Paul, tag him. We'll maybe get that interview. You can edit. You can polish it up for Scotty, and we can
Most
bump it out.
definitely.
Yeah.
I personally got one with Mayor Adams.
Yeah, we got to release that. That's fantastic.
Very unexpected. Just came about within minutes, and Maddie wasn't there, so I had to jump on the opportunity. Yeah, it's exciting stuff that they're doing in New York, trying to become the Bitcoin city, right?
I haven't seen the interview. I know he's doing a bit bond in New York. Did he seem to know about Bitcoin, or is it one of those, I'm a politician, I'm saying this, or do you think he really grokked Bitcoin?
I think that he is down for the cause. He seems to be a civil rights oriented freedom fighter, and genuinely do believe that he has people in his camp that actually know, such as Brock Pierce. We learned that Brock Pierce is actually the one that's pulling the strings behind Mayor Adams.
Wow.
Oh, he's helping Orange Pill. I'm talking to him. Me and Brock, our conversations live. It was a great conversation. I like that guy. What one hell of a guy. Like just like he like how motivational he is, and like how intelligent he is. Like I clicked with him right away. Like we just had I had never met him before. It was like boom. It was like wow, the chemistry. I just felt it, man.
And he's like a crypto OG, right?
He's an OG, yeah, for sure.
Like he created Tether, or was a founder of Tether or something like that?
I'm not. I honestly I had never met him before this conference, and he just was like, Paul had him scheduled on my docket, and like the second we met and started talking, I'm like, well, this dude's fucking amazing.
Good personality.
What a cool dude.
Yeah.
I guess he was in the Mighty Ducks. He's famous for that as a child actor. So I found that out.
Brock? What's his
Brock
name?
Pierce, yeah.
Hold on.
He was
I love that movie.
in the Mighty Ducks.
I love that
movie.
He
I
was
love
like
that
the
trilogy.
really good kid on the other team that ends up joining their team.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's Brock.
Yeah. Oh, let's go. I'm a fan already.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
apparently he's in all these John Voight movies now. John Voight said he would make
The
another
Flying
film
V.
Really?
unless he joins the cast. So yeah, he's back in Hollywood, but John Voight is another patriot, solid guy.
Nice.
I've met him. There's only 2 actors in LA that I was left with a great impression, and John Voight was one of them. So great to hear that they're working together. And Brock Pierce did say that he would come down to Naples. So
Oh, he did. Okay.
Well, he told you. He says, you said we got to have a longer conversation because you can go on for hours.
No
He
doubt.
said, yeah, he comes down to Naples all the time. So I have his contacts. We're going to set something up.
Nice. Yeah, we Paul was like, because Paul was like trying to rush me, and like there's a list of questions I had for him, and like we like spent 20 minutes, and it was like the first question. Like we hadn't even gotten to like any other questions of the interview. So I was like, damn, this chemistry was insane. At least I felt it.
Get the Flying V going. Let's go.
All right. We're going to try something new today, where I'm going to try to be able to control the topics and discussion here. We've got this dual mouse setup going. So, Paul, let me know if you can get 2 separate cursors. Is that possible or no?
We're working on it. I was supposed to have that ready today, but
Okay.
if you could give me just bear with me 1 second. Let me
no
get
worries.
one crop real quick on this scene here where I'm going to have all 3 of you.
Gotcha.
Every time we sit down, it gets distorted a bit. Give me literally 15 seconds.
Scotty, have you been to any other Bitcoin conferences before?
No.
This is your first one?
First one.
Oh, it was a good one to be at.
awesome. Yeah. I was thinking about going to one that I think was in Austin, or no, it might have been Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville last year was awesome too.
Yeah. But no, this was my first one. I was blown away. It was
Yeah.
super well organized.
Uh-huh.
I had heard things about the Miami one where things were maybe more spread out.
Yeah.
But this one, everything was in one area.
yeah.
It was so good, so easy to get around.
The last 2 Miami conferences I thought were fantastic. I think one of the years was like there was with the whole COVID thing going on. That was maybe like 5 years ago. That one was like a little rough because they did these long lines and it was like really hot. But it was in a cool area. It was like in Wynwood, which is like a really cool area, part of Miami. But they didn't have it figured out with the weights and the lines. That was like the worst one. But aside from that, everything else has been like every year they just get better and better and better.
Speakers were impressive.
Yeah.
To have JD Vance there, Vivek Ramaswamy, the Trump brothers. I mean, the list goes on. Tristan Thompson, NBA guy, was walking around there all day one day.
Scottie Pippen was walking around. I think
Was
he
he
was
there?
there.
Was he with Satoshi?
He came by the media area, but Nico got to talk to him. I didn't get a chance to grab him. Yeah.
I would have loved that. Was that for the last day, Friday?
I don't know if it was Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
I just saw him post about it.
Dude,
Was he with
that would've
Satoshi
been epic.
Nakamoto?
Was he with Satoshi? I don't know. Maybe he is Satoshi. Maybe Scotty is
Imagine
Satoshi.
that. Scottie Pippen. Yeah.
Yeah, impressive list.
All right. Let's look into our first take of the day here. I guess this is a law in California that they're trying to pass, which, the pseudo-communist hellhole of California in some ways. They're saying that they passed a bill to seize Bitcoin left idle on exchanges. So after 3 years of inactivity, assets can be taken by the state under unclaimed property laws. What do you boys think about that?
So how does that work in terms of getting access to private keys? Like if it's on an exchange, I guess it's still owned by the exchange.
Well, they're just talking about on the exchange. I mean,
right.
yes, if you have your private keys, they
Then
cannot
they can't
take your
take that,
funds
right.
because
So it
that's
has
the
to
whole
be on
point
the
of having
exchange.
not your keys, not your coin, right? So like that's the whole point is that. But like just the idea. I mean, I know I've bought Bitcoin on exchanges and left it there for like 7 years, you know what I mean? But that is just wild to me that like they could even possibly conceive about doing that. Like imagine like you bought it in 2022 and like all of a sudden all your Bitcoin disappears and you're like, where the fuck did my Bitcoin go? Did I get hacked? Did I get scammed? And then you find out, yeah, you got scammed by the state of California. So they could fund their communism that they got going on over there. Wild.
I think that speaks on the importance of self
Yeah,
custody.
yeah. So I think yes, self custody is extremely important.
Exchanges are important. Like we need them. I mean, in order to onboard the masses.
Of course,
but
yeah.
You have to have them to like get it in and out. But
Yeah.
that's what it's a tool to get it to your private wallet. David
Bailey from the Bitcoin conference says, does this mean if you leave money in a bank account for 3 years, they'll take that too? I wouldn't be surprised. So they are already taking it by printing money. So they're stealing from you via inflation. They're stealing it from you via all these, different tax laws and different things they've got going. So, yes, I mean, but this is extremely concerning, right? So you're seeing
who's taking it, the exchange or the state?
The state of California has just passed a bill to seize Bitcoin left idle on exchanges.
I read that Arizona did so too.
Arizona
They were
might
the
have done
first.
something similar. So
Maybe that's a way that they're going to collect it or get their reserve.
I don't know, but it is it's definitely
And
a warning.
Benefit from the upside, right? I mean, they're going to just create their own stockpile.
Let me just steal from the masses, right? Steal from the plebs. Hey, I know Grandma left. She bought Bitcoin in 2020, and she just left it on her Coinbase account. And I'm sorry, it's gone. It's been claimed by the state of California.
What sucks is there's a lot of people around that time, like in 17, 18, 19, that were just buying in. They're like, I'm not coming back to this space for another 5 or 10 years. They were just leaving it. So
no, I know. So definitely something to be concerned about, something to watch out for. So it does exemplify the importance of self-custody. Let's move along here to the next take. Don't worry. Lindsey Graham's $411,634 hotel bill in Ukraine was approved by Lindsey Graham. Nothing to see here, folks. So this is the type of insane shit that many of us in the masses are just absolutely sick of. I'm not sure how we could have a $411,000 hotel bill for Lindsey Graham's vacation. I've been on many vacations to many luxury resorts. I've ate at the nicest restaurants, the most expensive places, and I have never in my life accrued a $411,000 hotel bill, even in the country like Ukraine. I mean, I know there's levels of corruption, but it just seems a little suspicious. Like, usually a hotel is like, even a luxury hotel could be like $2,000 a night. So like, we're doing the math, and that's like, say you pay $8 to $10 grand. How did we get from there to $411,000? It's just something to be a little suspicious, right? So
Could
you can
be
just
another
see.
big guy
No,
involved.
and again, this is
How
not just
long?
Lindsey Graham. This is all sides of the aisle, right? We're highlighting a Republican here, but it's both sides of the aisle massively doing shit like this, and this is the type of stuff that people are like, hey, like this just has to stop. Like the taxpayer should not be on the hook for all this. Like that's twice his. Like I'm sure if you look at his annual salary. As a
It's probably around there.
it's
but
probably
a-
not. It's probably less than that. So
Yeah.
like he spent in a week, more than his entire annual salary for a year, and you wonder how these people are getting so rich. You're like, how does this person who makes $200,000 to be how does AOC who like makes like $200K a year, how the fuck does she have like $50 million or $20 million, whatever the hell she has, right? It's like, no, the math ain't math in here. Like,
Yep.
what the fuck is happening, right? And you can see because they've got the taxpayer credit card they can just use and throw around, and like it's honestly disgusting. Like there really needs to be more transparency here, and we just have to keep calling this type of stuff out.
Similarly, there was a congressman out of Texas who just bought $850,000 worth of Bitcoin, which is like bullish for Bitcoin, obviously, and a good sign. But it's like for guys to have that as a senator or a congressman to be able to have that much cash just on a whim, yeah, I'm just gonna throw $850,000 to this Bitcoin. It's like what are we paying these guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no. I mean, I think when you're a public official, there's a higher level of transparency that should be required of you, right? Like, you need to be an open book in a lot of ways, and it's just stuff like that really is like raises people's eyebrows, and they're like, how the fuck is this happening, right? Like, what the hell's going on here? Maybe somebody knows more than me. Maybe there's some crazy justification for this. I'd love to hear it, in the comments, or if anybody has any thoughts on this.
How long were the stays, and like what additional services they tack on to those hotel bills? Because hotels do offer concierge services. So like, were they adding?
I mean, I've gotten concierge service before, but not for $400,000 for a couple
so
days.
it makes you wonder, like, what are they taxing for? Like, what?
I mean, I assume the average
why?
salary,
How long? A year?
salary of a Ukrainian citizen is probably like $15K or less. So like, why? How did this happen? Something's going on here. There's something happening. We don't know what it is, but it's a little sus.
But
You know?
it speaks, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later. Like $37 trillion in debt. I mean, this is a drop.
This is a drop in the bucket.
But
This
you
is
do this a
how.
lot.
Yeah, this is how we're getting there, right? Like this is how taxpayer funds are being wasted, and this is what there's a legitimate conversation happening right now between people, proponents, and despondents of the big beautiful bill, and there's a kind of a infighting going on in the Republican Party, kind of saying like, hey, this Lindsey Graham shit, like we don't want this anymore. But at the same time, there's this other wing that's saying, hey, like there's all these other issues, and this bill kind of solves this issue. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today.
And Elon has said basically when he was going through the Doge process, there's mandatory spending that he basically couldn't even touch, which includes military spending. They couldn't do an audit on the Pentagon, and this would I would assume would fall under something like that. If you can't audit that, if you can't even see the books, like you really can't even touch or go after this guy for something like this.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. Let's move along here to the next topic. This I thought was kind of meaningful. Citibank announces it's explicitly prohibiting debanking based on political affiliation, as well as nixing a 2018 policy that would require clients to restrict gun/magazine sales. Another win for political neutrality from one of the biggest banks in America. We are seeing the climate shift here when it comes to debanking and political banking and stuff that's essentially being trickled down through the government, because it's not a lot of these banks that are doing this themselves. They didn't just all decide to have the exact same policy, right? It's the government, violating the First Amendment of free speech and going after companies that they necessarily don't like in whatever industry, even though they are perfectly legal. So it's nice to see the page turning on this. In the previous administration, in Trump's previous administration, I think he had a guy named Giancarlo. I can't remember his last name, whatever it was, but he was the head of the, I want to say CFTC or the OTC, and they made a rule that basically said like, hey, listen, like for banks, like we are going to be politically neutral. We're not gonna do this choke point stuff. We're not gonna target industries that we for whatever reason don't like. And then immediately when the Biden administration came in, they repealed all those rules. So we got to figure out a way we can get a law passed that prohibits this. I mean, I don't know whether it's a First Amendment route of like saying, hey, this violates free speech. But the problem is it causes a lot of misaligned incentives. It holds back our nation because we have malinvestment occurring. We have funds going to other nation states and other countries because of the business climate here in the U.S. And we have to figure out a way to stop this for good. the government should not be putting their thumbs on the scales to limit legal industries and prevent banks from working with them and doing that kind of stuff. So,
and how do you really regulate that? Because it's like, okay, we're not going to debank someone based off their political affiliation, but like you could just say it's not because of the political affiliation.
That's what they're
just
doing.
Say it's something else. It's like, it's just hard to actually put a regulation on that and make sure that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's not just political affiliation. It's, hey, you're in the crypto industry or you're in this, right? So, but the issue is, and we saw this with a lot of social media companies, the argument was that like, oh no, they're private businesses, they can do what they want, right? That was the argument. But that's not really what was happening. It wasn't that they were doing what they wanted. It was that government was coming behind the scenes and pulling the strings and forcing them to do these things, right? Because a lot of these companies wouldn't, like if you're a company, you want to sell, like me, myself, like I might lean one way, I might lean like kind of to the right, but like I want to sell my product. I don't care if like somebody wants to do business with me, if they're left leaning, right leaning, whatever. Like businesses want to naturally sell their product to everybody, right? It's just because that's what capitalism does. It makes the most sense to do that, right? Like you don't want to try to alienate half of your customer base or 30% or 40% or 20% or even 10% of your customer base, right? You want to try to have an inclusive message. So a lot of the things that were happening were not natural things that were happening. They were government officials, FBI agents, CIA agents coming in and saying, hey, this is misinformation. Hey, this is disinformation, taking billions of dollars from taxpayers and shuttling them off to these NGOs that are then working to push propaganda and censorship, which is really antithetical to everything America stands for, right? So that's what was happening. And the very similar thing was happening here in government when it came to banking. It wasn't like, when I talk to banks, I got the same message from every fucking bank, like saying things about, they were just repeating verbatim what they were told. That's not normal, right? Like that's not natural. That doesn't naturally happen. Like you have different banks. Maybe this bank wants to discriminate. Maybe this one doesn't. But we got in a situation where the entire landscape, every single one was saying the exact same thing, just parroting.
It's
just
like
repeating.
The media who got the same talking point.
Yeah, it was like, that's exactly what it was. And it was coming from the government. And that is unconstitutional. That is a direct violation of the First Amendment. So, I think that might be the way to wrap this in and try to prevent this from happening. But the problem was, they learned from the first time that they went to court during Choke Point 1.0 under the Obama administration, and they learned that they couldn't put anything in writing because when the courts came, they said, hey, what you're doing, you need to cease and desist. What you're doing is completely unconstitutional. They lost those cases when it came to, I think it was marijuana companies and gun companies and porn companies and just whatever, payday lenders, different companies that were politically disfavored at the time, though they may have been legal. The government got involved and tried to prevent banks from banking those companies. And they found that in writing, and that's when the court said, hey, are you guys out of your fucking minds? Like, this is totally unconstitutional, cease and desist. So what happened was the same people came back under the Biden administration, those same cronies, and they learned the way they worded things. They didn't put anything in writing. They would have private phone calls, and they would do this. So there was no evidence of what they were doing, but they were doing the same thing. So, in a lot of ways, I think those people should serve jail time because they're basically violated the court's order.
For sure.
And continued in the unconstitutional, reckless behavior that they were doing, which ultimately has caused a lot of problems for America, right? Because we lost developer share, we lost technology and innovation share of the world's minds. I mean, there is a major cost to those actions, right? So I just wanted to talk about this because it's so important that we're seeing those political wins and climates change. And this is a great example of that.
Silver lining to that is Donald Trump Jr. was just on CNBC talking about how he was debanked, and it was the debanking that pushed him towards crypto.
There you go. Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it's
no,
like
no
there's
doubt.
a silver lining in it.
I actually had that same conversation with Aaron Van Weerdum when we were talking at the Bitcoin conference. Because he was very skeptical of the Trumps, like when he was like, and that's, understandable. It's always good to be skeptical. But to be fair, like they've delivered. Like Trump has delivered on his promises when it comes to freeing Ross and fucking supporting the Bitcoin and Web3 industry. Like he has really delivered, and I hope they continue to deliver. But yeah, I pointed out that like, hey, like they're not just saying this for political convenience. They're actually saying this because they're pissed off in the same way that many of us are, right? Like that feeling that you get when your bank account is closed because of your industry or because of like that is a bad feeling, and like that makes you like, holy shit, this is like I should question the system, this is not right, you know what I mean? And that's exactly what happened to the Trump family. Right. So all right, let's move on. Let's react to this live clip here. I've got a Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He gives his defense tonight of the congressional spending bill. I'm a fiscal hawk, but I'm also a realist. So let's can we play this, Paul? Or we can play it right now.
I'm a fiscal hawk, but I am also a realist. And the way to think about this is every $300 billion is 1% of GDP. And as the clip that you just said or you just showed where I said we didn't get here in a year, we're not going to get out of it in a year, that we have to bring this down gradually, because we want to do two things. We want to cut and constrain spending, and we want to grow the economy. And what Senator Paul is asking for or advocating for, I think, could cause a sudden stop in the economy. So I'm a deficit hawk, but I'm also a realist.
You say it could cause a sudden stop. You're saying that this is too radical of to flip the switch like this, to cut. I mean, he probably wants to cut, a trillion or a couple trillion, right? You say that would be too dramatic.
Well, Rob, a trillion would be 3% of GDP.
Yeah. And that would, what would that do? I mean, because he's, I think he's a pretty smart guy. I have him on the show a lot. What do you believe that would do?
Well, look, what's important here is our debt to GDP. Yeah. So that if we don't grow, then we won't grow the tax base, and we're not going to grow revenues. We're not going to grow the economy. So we inherited a mess, yeah, and we have to constrain spending, cut spending, and then grow our way out of this.
What do you guys think of that? Any thoughts, Scotty boy?
Seems like the narratives have switched a little bit. Seems like they were thinking about cutting expenses. Now it's just grow, grow, grow. Like I was saying earlier, in terms of what they can cut and not cut, there's 70% of the budget that they just can't touch, which is mandatory spending.
That's great. Like that's
70%.
No, I think it's discretionary spending, which is what they can't cut.
Well,
they can cut the mandatory, but they can't. Is it the opposite?
They can't cut the mandatory, which is like the Medicare, Medicaid, interest, military. But there's discretionary spending that they can cut. So it's 30%.
No, but they're actually cutting Medicaid in this. I think you have it backwards, because they're talking about doing Medicaid cuts, and some of the senators are saying, I think Hawley came out today and said the Medicaid cuts are too extreme in my state. I won't sign off on the bill. So I saw that in the news cycle. I think Medicaid, the discretionary stuff, is what they're not able to cut, and that's where a lot of the fraud is. So I think that was the message. So yeah, like there's a lot of confusion going on right now. So I'm going to try to make sense of it all here, to the best way I understand it. Because a lot of people were very upset about that. A lot of the Doge stuff hasn't been codified yet, and that's like completely understandable, and it makes perfect sense. The only issue with that is that in this bill, apparently, if you want to touch the discretionary spending, apparently you need 60 votes to do that. So this bill would only pass by a simple majority, which like is very, very tight right now, very, very contested. So what they're saying is that they can only touch the mandatory spending in this bill. And Paul, you can look this up and confirm if I'm correct here. So a lot of the Doge stuff is discretionary. So they're going to have to do these rescission packages or something to go after that. But apparently in this bill, with a simple majority vote, you can only do the mandatory things apparently. So that's what they're looking at right now. But like there's two sides of this whole equation. So I think Stephen Miller came out, and Chamath was talking about this past week. They've kind of been going back and forth about it. But I think the consensus is like, yes, spending does need to be constrained. I think the question is
I'm a fiscal hawk, but
the question is just like the devil's in the details of it, because you have such narrow margins in each chamber that nobody's going to get everything they want. I think there's probably a lot of stuff within mandatory that they could probably cut still that they're not. So I think there is some legitimacy to that. A lot of the Doge stuff, though, was in the discretionary and will have to be done through those rescission packages.
I think it would be interesting just to see what mandatory spending even includes versus discretionary. Because if mandatory includes the military, includes the interest, like that, those are stuff that are tough to cut. Because I think the interest is what it is. It's a percentage of the debt.
Yeah. So Paul, we're asking Grok here, what includes mandatory?
So Social Security,
Medicare. Yeah.
Medicaid.
So these are the things that they could potentially cut in this bill. Not the discretionary stuff.
If they can't cut military, can you at least put limits on things where you're not spending billions of dollars on paper clips?
So yeah, I mean that's part of the problem. They have to dig into that stuff because that's absolutely happening, right? So that's why we need to audit the Pentagon. We need to audit all these organizations because there's just fraud everywhere, right? And we have to be transparent on that and just open up the books in a lot of these situations and really take a look here because there's a lot of funny business going on still.
In 2021, you were chips 50-cent chips were selling for $50 or $100.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
At what point do you have to just stop the manufacturing?
Yeah.
regardless of if that contract will renew the contract.
Yeah, I mean
the
they're
following
they're
year.
cutting Snap, and people are all up in arms like, why are you reducing Snap? Well, like we're spending the amount of money we've been spending on Snap has doubled, and which is the nutritional stuff, and like I think like 10 to 20% of it's going to like buy soda, like supplemental nutritional assistance program, like billions and billions of dollars are going to like Coca-Cola and Pepsi to buy soda for people. Like, yeah, that needs to be cut. That's insane.
Right.
Like that's fucking crazy.
But so the definition of discretionary is available for use at discretion of the user. So it's like that would make more sense that would be easier to cut because it's at the discretion of the user.
Apparently it's not though. That's the complicated part. I mean, I that's what I'm trying to understand here.
Yeah.
Approximately 60%.
It just makes more sense that the mandatory stuff is like it's mandatory. Like you can't really cut it. I get what you're saying.
But you can reduce.
You can reduce it by 6%.
I think there's some of that. Yeah. Oh, so he wants. Yeah.
He's calling for a Medicaid. He wants to reduce basically everything by 6%.
I don't think that's unreasonable.
No,
because we've increased like since COVID. Like the amount of spending has essentially doubled almost. 50% have doubled. So like literally, I think what this bill does is like I think it just like freezes it at the level it's at maybe. When we really should be like cutting back a little bit on this stuff. And I'm sure if we had the Doge team comb those things and start going after it and looking into some of those things, I'm sure we'd find a lot of fraud. We'd find a lot of areas we could save on. I'm sure we could. But I think like the lowest hanging fruit they've been looking at right now is a lot of just the random discretionary things that have nothing to do with like the core, like, the military and entitlements.
Right.
They're like on the outskirts. They haven't even gotten to that yet. So I think that's part of the problem is that's what we're talking about here. But it is interesting, the messaging from the administration, and this is absolutely true that like, there's gonna have to be some combination of all of the above to get out of the kind of mess we're in right now. And growth needs to be a major part of that. I do agree with that sentiment. So like the argument from the, from MAGA right now is essentially that, hey, like this bill may not be perfect, but it fixes a lot of things when it comes to like, immigration and, all these other topics we want to like really go after. Like this is going to solve a lot of those issues. That's the argument. And it's going to clear the way for pro-growth policies, deregulation, energy stuff. That's kind of the argument that's happening right now.
And it wants to keep the Trump tax cuts in place from 2017, which stimulated the economy a lot in 2017 through 2020.
Correct.
Obviously, then COVID happened, and that messed up the entire economy. But that's going to be good. Just keep stimulating the economy to be able to keep that in place.
And again, there's a tall task. This administration did really inherit a terrible situation. Like, let's just be honest here. And growth is going to have to be a big part of it, right? But which takes us to our next post, which is one of my favorites. So Elon obviously is not happy about what's happening. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. So he's not happy about that at all. Jeff Park says, if the man that represents the world's greatest force multiplier for civilization can't fix it, nobody can. Buy Bitcoin. There's simply no other way. So really, like, Bitcoin serves so many different purposes and use cases, but one of the most important use cases that is often people kind of underrate, but people kind of like say, oh, like, Bitcoin right now, like just fuck everything else. But like this idea, no matter where you're at on that journey, like Bitcoin as an insurance policy against the current system and status quo is a great use case, right? Like you're buying freedom, hardest money, soundest money to ever exist, sound money for a digital age. And to have that as this kind of like, hey, even if you're just an average person that's like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know that, everything usually works itself out. We grow the economy, things are good, everything, it'll work itself out. But having like a small allocation of Bitcoin, it's just like, hey, this is this fuck you insurance that I have here. Just in case it's not all fine and all these talking heads on TV are wrong about shit, you've got, Bitcoin. Obviously, it's going to appreciate over time because they're debasing the fiat money, and that accelerates rapidly whenever there are problems because they try to print their way out of it.
I think if you just explain to people what the deficit is and how that deficit is actually funded, which is just them printing money. Yeah. People don't even understand that dynamic. When you run a $2 trillion
it's intentionally obfuscated away and not really taught to you through the public education because there's show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes. Exactly. Like, they don't want you to think that. They have all these fancy words and they try to put on their suits and say all this stuff. But at the end of the day, they're fucking printing money. Like, that's what's happening. They're playing games with it. They're moving it to this bank account. They're buying, stocks over here with it, and they're doing quantitative tightening and quantitative easing, and
$400,000 hotel stays.
Yeah, COVID stimulus and all this type of stuff. And we get then on the backside, we've got $400,000 to $500,000 hotel stays for a week in Ukraine. It's just It's like it's just kind of like late stage empire behavior. That's like what this really feels like, right? If you look at civilization, countries have nations and empires have prospered and grown and been tremendously successful. And then you get to this phase where there's just this fucking abomination of theft, fraud, grift that's occurring. And it really, it sacrifices the whole empire in a lot of ways.
Sounds like that's what the beginning of the crumble is. Like,
yeah, I mean, we're at this point. It really feels like we're at this inflection point in history, right? We're at this inflection point, and it's like, are we going to let this thing fail like other great empires have, with massive growing debts and printing money and doing this stuff? I mean, the argument is like, hey, like, you can't stop this train. That's what a lot of Bitcoiners are saying, right? Like, where are we at? Like, can we stop this train? Or, obviously over time, the money's going to get debased. We know that, but can we open up the markets and allow capitalism to do its thing and grow more prosperity? Can we create more value from people than we extract? That's really the ultimate question, right? So we're going to find out. We are going to find out. Let's move along here to the next topic. Elon Musk. This is not even the tip of the iceberg. Florida police have arrested a 37-year-old illegal immigrant for molesting at least one and possibly more of the teen girls that the Biden administration sent to live with him as part of his unaccompanied alien children smuggling operation. So this is really, I think people really need to go to prison for what happened, what they did to allow these 20 million unvetted people in the United States and just let these people stream across the border and putting kids in with random dudes like in houses and stuff. I mean, this is like totally fucking disgusting. And, I think a lot of it, Trump has said, like, a lot of this stuff was done via the auto pen. Like, who was in charge? Who really allowed this? Was it the people that were running Biden's campaign who realized? Because this move really seems like this was coordinated by his, I can't remember what the guy's name, who was like his chief of staff, Ron Klain, and all those guys. These are like political operatives who like operate like for the Democratic machine. And like the people on that staff, they probably said, hey, like, we've got a voter problem. Look what's happening. We had to rig the last election. Guess what? It was really tight. We took us 3 weeks to stuff the ballots in these swing state cities that we held out the votes for. And like, we can't do that again. So we actually have to do it legit now. So we need to import 20 million voters, put them on the rolls, get them set up for entitlements to suck from the American taxpayer. So this was like a very orchestrated plan. As this happened, we've got military-age males from all over the world streaming into the country. We've got gangs taking over, like Colorado apartment buildings. We've got, rape. We've got murder. We've got massive. Can you pull up the Trump? Trump had a post on his Truth. I think it's Telegram or Truth Social today, where he showed the images of many of these people that were let into the country. There was this Islamic Brotherhood guy who came in and did some shooting or burning or bomb threat.
In Colorado?
He did something in Colorado. He was another illegal alien, of course, they let in. I mean, these people need to go to prison. Whoever did this, I mean, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. It's just really, really wild.
The BBB bill calls for another $75 billion.
Yeah, they're trying to
the
really.
border.
Yeah, they're trying to. And so that's like the argument from Stephen Miller and a lot of these guys, the Trump administration. They're like, hey, listen, like, yes, it's not going to fix everything, but like, it's a damn good start because we can start solving some of these problems. And they're probably right. It's probably better than doing nothing, because if you do nothing, you get tax increases, and you don't get you can't fix any of a lot of the problems. So yesterday's horrific attack in Boulder, Colorado will not be tolerated in the United States of America. He came in through Biden's ridiculous open border policy, which has hurt our country so badly. He must go out under Trump policy. Acts of terrorism will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This is yet another example of why we must keep our borders secure and deport illegal anti-American radicals from our homeland. My heart goes out to the victims of this terrible tragedy and the great people of Boulder, Colorado. Go to the post he posted today, Paul. Are you able to pull it up? I think there's one from literally, is this from today? He shared an image and it just showed he just had 10 to 20 rapists and murderers that were let in the past 4 years that were just doing all these fucking crimes, and he showed they came from here, they came from here, they came from here. He posted it on Telegram. I don't know if he posted it on X or any other platforms today. This is last month. So yeah, it was on Telegram, but no worries. Let's and this was another interesting aspect of this whole big beautiful bill thing, and the scoring that it's getting from these different political agencies that are saying, hey, it's going to, increase the deficit, or it's going to lower the deficit. It's going to do all these things. Like, you think you're dealing with people who are running these models and they're like impartial. But you got to realize you're not dealing with impartial people running these models. You're dealing with people that are giving you a model, and they're all Democrats. So of course they're going to criticize. So play this clip from Levitt. It's actually really interesting what she says here, and this is kind of wild.
Also point out, I don't think many people know this, there hasn't been a single staffer in the entire Congressional Budget Office that has contributed to a Republican since the year 2000. But guess what? There have been many staffers within the Congressional Budget Office who have contributed to Democrat candidates and politicians every single cycle since. So unfortunately, this is an institution in our country that has become partisan and political, and we are very confident in our own economic analyses of this bill. There is $1.6 trillion in savings, and our Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought, is a fiscal hawk. He is well known in this city for being a well-respected fiscal hawk. He has tools at his disposal to produce even more savings. And as you know, the White House will be sending our rescissions package to Capitol Hill today. And on immigration, also point out, I don't think many people know this, there hasn't.
So I think that's really important to look at when you're looking at this bill and people are saying, hey, it's going to increase the deficit, it's going to do all these things. Maybe it's not the best bill. And again, I'm trying to I'm hearing both sides, and I'm agreeing with things on both sides of the argument here. But at the end of the day, a lot of this information is you're looking at you're trying to use this measuring stick to measure whether it will be good or bad. And this measuring stick is literally a measuring stick where it's your political opponents, essentially, who are all in an office together, and they're evaluating your bill. And you can try to say you're an independent, like the Congressional Budget Office, we're independent and nonpartisan. But when every single person in that building is a fucking Democrat, how the fuck are you going to get an on? It's like these show trials they did against Trump, where you go to Washington D.C. and try to prosecute him, and 98% of the people, 98% of the jury is Democrat. That's fucking not a real trial. That's a kangaroo court. And that's kind of what this is in a lot of ways. You're just dealing with this level of bureaucracy and corruption that's it's hard to even navigate. You want to be an independent organization and do something, well, guess what? 50% of the people should lean one way, and the 50% of the people should kind of lean the other way. I mean, you should try to at least get balanced viewpoints when you're doing these modeling and doing these things. And that's disturbing in a lot of ways.
It speaks to the stubbornness of the political left. They toe the party line no matter what. And if you step even slightly outside of that line, if you were to donate any money to a Republican, they would oust you in a second.
I know.
And that's why it never happens.
And guess what happens to all those people? They're all part of Trump's administration.
Yeah, then they come over.
All the moderate, reasonable people are all now Republicans, or they're all independents that have served for Trump, Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr.
You really you can't step outside of bounds at all on that side, or else they get you.
Yeah. Which is, again, the Republican Party today is look at Elon's disagreeing on things, Trump's having the other side. There's a disagreement allowed within the Republican Party, which I think is healthy for a party, right? And it's gotten, the Overton window has shifted so radically, to the left, on the when it comes to the Democratic side. It's the polling numbers are 20% of you have 18% support. 18% of people have a favorable view of your party. I think you're in trouble, and that's why they got smoked in the election and why they lost. And their argument, their counter to this is hey, we're just going to go further to the left. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's what it feels like.
It definitely does. Yeah, it's why they literally allowed 20 million fucking people into the country to try to get more voters, stick them on entitlements, and make the taxpayer pay for it, and then essentially, hey, here's your voting. Because a lot of what they do too is they go collect these ballots. People don't even speak English, and they just go get the ballots and they submit them for them. You know what I mean? That's they're doing ballot harvesting on massive scale. They got caught in Pennsylvania trying to do this in the last state election. Finally, they got thousands of fake fucking votes because people were looking out for it this time. We're not going to play that game again, right? We know the fraud occurred in 2020. We're not going to play that game again. And they the last day of early registration, they fucking try to stuff these little ballot harvesters, try to stuff fucking thousands of ballots in, and they fucking caught them. So, and we're talking about states that literally, this is one county in one state, and there's hundreds of counties, in some of these states. And this is one county that they caught people trying to fake register thousands of fucking people. That's only one county. And we're talking about states where the ultimate vote was decided by thousands of votes. So just what people be aware of, right? The illusion that there was no fraud is cracking on this whole system. They're trying to, the media, they're all trying to put this thing forward, but people aren't buying it anymore. People are waking up.
Right.
All right. What do you?
We've got some questions real quick here.
Oh yeah.
One of them was, about Simple Proof and what they're doing using the Bitcoin blockchain. Essentially, just asking what you think about that concept.
Yeah, we met with I interviewed Carlos Toriello, Carlito. I interviewed him at Bitcoin 2025 in Vegas, and we had a really good conversation about what they're doing. Essentially, what it is taking all the Bitcoin purists are going to be furious, but taking an actual picture of voter data. An actual picture of like an election, the night of the election. You're taking a picture of like there's a Republican, a Democrat, an Independent, or all the parties, depending on where you're at. You put them together in a room. They certify a vote for a precinct for like a poll. Like, okay, hey, we had. I mean, obviously, this only works if you have actual real elections that don't last for months on end, where the votes are coming in, and we're harvesting here. And 3 weeks after the election, we don't know who won, and they're allowing more votes to come in, and like just this only works when you actually have a real election day where people look at it and it can actually verify. But what they do is at each precinct, what they do is they'll have the people agree together, do the count together with multiple eyes on the table, and then all of the different party people will sign off on the vote together, right? Like, this isn't Detroit where there's 900 Democrat poll watchers and 2 Republican poll watchers, right? Like, this is just small precinct levels everywhere, right? Where like they're coming together, they're taking a picture of that final tally, and what they do is they'll take that image and they'll hash that image into a hash. I can't remember the website that does this, but no, it's Simple Proof uses it. I'm trying to remember where they actually turn it into a hash. Let's see what they I can't remember the exact name of it, but it basically essentially what they do is they'll take this data, they'll turn it into a hash, right? So that way, if you take that hash and you plug it back in, you'll get the actual image. It'll rehash back the image. I can't remember exactly what that aspect of it's called, but instead of like putting the whole image in the blockchain, what they'll do is they'll just take that hash and they'll put that hash. It's just like a timestamping. Yeah, they're using timestamping. So they'll put that hash into the blockchain, into a block. That way people can go back later and they can go back through Bitcoin's blockchain and they can look at the history of the time of that block, and they can take that hash and then they can go and then they can put the hash into the reader, and it will literally show what that is a hash message of, which is an image, right? So it'll show what that hash is. And this is just using cryptography to verify the result, right? To say, hey, at this time on election night. So this makes it very difficult for like in Venezuela for them to like try to change the results after, right? Like or say, hey, we have more votes coming, or this, that, and the other, because you can go look at that image of the final tally that all 3 of the election poll workers signed off on that night. So you can't come back 3 weeks later and say, oh, this was wrong. No, you can actually look what they did that night. And it just makes it much more difficult to cheat if you can look at all the precincts in real time. You can say, hey, no, this person actually won this precinct by like thousands of votes. What are you talking about? You can't change the history, right? It's like immutable history.
There's been proof of concept here. Like they did it in a lot of American countries.
So they did, right? Yes, they actually were a guest on our Bitcoin meetup, I think maybe a year ago, 6 to 12 months ago. And they actually, for the first time ever, have done this they did this in the United States, in Georgia. I think it's Scrivens, Georgia, because there's a lot of drama in Georgia for the previous presidential election. Maybe you can pull that up. Can you pull up their web page, Paul? Simple Proof.
But didn't they do it in like Honduras or El Salvador?
It was Guatemala, I believe.
Guatemala.
Yeah, I think that's where they did their proof of concept. But go to case studies. It's on the top of the page. Case studies. So they're actually starting to do it in U.S. counties. So here it is, Screven County, Georgia. In 2024, Screven County, Georgia became the first in the U.S. to use Bitcoin's blockchain to secure election results. Partnering with Simple Proof, officials timestamped key election reports on Bitcoin's time chain, ensuring results remain tamper-proof and publicly verifiable, setting a new standard for election integrity. So yes, in the United States, we are testing this out now. Obviously, many political operatives probably are not too happy about this. They're not going to want this. The intelligence agencies aren't going to be happy about this. But for the first time, I mean, and again, this technology has been available. This is easily technically possible. There's a reason that it's not being implemented, right? Like there's a reason why it's not. So the technology exists. We could absolutely do this, and I'm going to keep blowing the whistle on this. And we're gonna have Carlos come on. He'll come on the Runway at some point. We talked about it and spend a week here with us in the studio and come on our live podcast, but also do like a Cypherpunk'd podcast series with him. So yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Let's move along here to the next topic. Palantir is engaged in major expansion of the. I'm going to actually open up this thread here. Palantir is engaged in a major expansion of the American surveillance state. Spyware, this is from WikiLeaks. Spyware company Palantir is engaged in large-scale data collection on American citizens, having taken on multiple contracts across federal government agencies with large holdings of private information. So this is very concerning, at least to me, because at any time, Snowden blew the whistle on massive amounts of private data collection by the government. This is something I definitely, if the Trump administration is doing this, I strongly disagree with this. I think that we should not be ramping up surveillance on American citizens. We should have our Fourth Amendment protections. What do you guys think about this? Have you guys heard about this at all?
I haven't, but does that mean that they're basically taking the data from all of our phones and using it for like data sourcing? Or
I'm not sure exactly what's happening. I'm trying to unpack this to get more information on it. It was just it's been popping up on my feed a little bit.
Who is Palantir? Like,
so
what are
Palantir is a United States kind of like weapons spy, like kind of like a very high-end weapons company. Let's pull this up here. So Palantir's data analytics product Foundry is already installed within 4 federal agencies, including the Health and Human Services Department and the Department of Homeland Security, with talks underway with other agencies, including the IRS. Widespread deployment would give the administration unprecedented, warrantless access to the private records of everyone in the United States, whether they are suspects in a criminal investigation or not. I think the argument here is that this is to keep us safe. Well, that has
Patriot Act all over again.
This is part of the Patriot Act. I mean, this is probably authorized. They're probably utilizing the Patriot Act to be able to do this, right? So, in my mind, this is blatantly unconstitutional. And we have to call out all sides when they're wrong. And I think this is going to backfire spectacularly, like it always does, right? This is the honeypot of more information on people. And I think there should absolutely be warrants required to access all this information. We shouldn't just have, Joe Schmo, who's a FBI agent, be able to just pull up all this information on an American citizen without having probable cause and a warrant for a crime, right? So the fact that they have access to this and they can do all this stuff it's a scary thought. It honestly is. It's disturbing. So
the vulnerability of them getting hacked as well, by other parties.
That's usually what happens, right? So it creates this honeypot, and usually there are bad guys that know where the honeypot is. They go to the honeypot and they get all the information. So it's like, you're actually creating more problems, more crime, more victims by doing this. You're not actually helping in many cases. You're actually creating an opportunity for more crime.
In the name of what though? Like, why are they doing this? Like last time it was in the name of to protect America or to against terrorists. Like, what is it?
Because they hate our freedoms.
Yeah. Well, the argument is probably like, oh, we want to keep everybody safe. We want to stop crime. So here are the sources. They're providing some sources to compile data. How Palantir will build a surveillance state, Zionist surveillance state, a gleeful profiteers of Trump's police state. Wow. So they've provided some source here. So let's see here. The dark truth. No, this Palantir database isn't like the others. It will combine tax filings, student debt, Social Security, bank accounts, medical claims, immigration status. No previous database system has ever centralized this much personal info across various federal agencies. No government should have had this kind of access to our lives. Palantir should not be handling our data, and no administration should be building a domestic surveillance machine. The government should have no data on us, period. I agree completely. Like, I think this is... I'm trying to find somebody arguing from the other side, but I can't see anything yet. What is the justification for this? But it is extremely concerning because this most definitely will be weaponized and abused. It will be used to abuse people. Somebody steps out of line. So Trump is a victim of that. He's been a major victim of that. So he should really think twice before he really goes down this rabbit hole. If this is all true, this is going to most certainly be used by our intelligence agencies in the future to weaponize and attack civilians, go after people, leak information. So this is extremely concerning.
The other side's perspective is always, well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why should I be worried?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they can just come after. They can make up a reason to come after you. There's plenty of things.
We've seen it. We've seen literally what's happened with Trump with the Russiagate scam that's now been completely discredited. They just made up a bunch of shit. The DNC paid for it. It was like an attack from a thing, and they hid the information and fucking just lied about everything to like give themselves probable cause to go do stuff. So like this is the problem. It's never it never ends up being just for good. It always ends up being abused because that's human nature, right?
For
Humans
sure.
are imperfect.
Yep.
And they're gonna justify in their minds, find a way to do this stuff. So we need to attack this at its root. I haven't heard a lot of noise about it. I've just seen the posts here from WikiLeaks and a couple of things. So obviously what they were doing, what Edward Snowden exposed, was extremely concerning. It's a total violation of the Fourth Amendment. Now, a lot of people say, like, they already have all this information, which is probably true, right? But this is just kind of streamlining it, making it easier for them to access. So,
Paul, were you saying that they were, with the Palantir stuff, they were going to have access to our phones as a means to get with the Palantir stuff?
So not from what I, not directly. I just heard that they're gonna have access to American citizens' private information,
Okay.
which can be exploited. We know Pegasus is a spy software that does have the ability to access phones,
Right.
but Palantir's software, I did not hear direct mention of
Okay.
them having that, but there could be violations, breach of, there's exploits that can happen.
Yeah.
I saw this. This was the explanation of the big beautiful bill here that I wanted to briefly touch on. It looks like Stephen Miller was replying to his post that he had on it. Let's see if I can show more on this. The most significant. So the big beautiful bill contains 3 major sections. The most significant border security and deportation effort in history, including the entire wall up front now with no possibility of Democrat obstruction. Full extension and expansion of the Trump tax cuts. This is what CBO is scoring, not spending tax cuts. The one we campaigned on and pledged. So this is what they're saying it's going to increase the deficit because the tax cuts supposedly are going to be less revenue. That may be true. I don't know. But obviously when your political opponents, even though they're claiming to be nonpartisan, but they only give money exclusively to the other all the people that work there only give money exclusively to the other side of the political aisle. Obviously, they're going to score you negatively for tax cuts, which is something that often Republicans campaign on, right? I mean, it's a no fucking brainer. You got to think about it, right? But usually what ends up happening, if you look at the Laffer curve and many other things, is tax cuts open up a larger spigot for everybody, let people keep more of their own money that they can now go reinvest in the economy, in society, to grow the economy even more, so you get more taxes over time, right? Because now it's a much larger pie, right? It's like if you take from people that are trying to bake the pie while they're trying to bake the pie is not going to get baked. And that's literally what we see historically through like overwhelming and mounting evidence throughout all of human history. We've seen that nations that have low taxes and more freedom and more capitalism, more free markets, and that can compete and innovate, they are going to, people that make a lot of money are going to deploy that money more efficiently. They're going to continue to hire people. Like, look what Elon's doing. They're going to continue to be strategic. They're going to continue to grow the pie for everybody. And that's what we've seen, right? So the more you take from people while they're trying to make the pie, the less big of a pie you're going to get. And that's kind of the argument being made here is like, hey, like we got to keep growing the pie. And they're 100% right on that. Like if you want to grow your way out of this debt, this is a major part of it, right? So that is true.
And I think the tax cuts are going to increase the debt. Like I think it's 2.4, 2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. But they're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouths because like they don't want to have that tax cut in place. But if they really didn't want it, then why didn't Biden propose to get rid of it during his 4-year
Because
presidency?
that would be incredibly unpopular. So
exactly.
That's.
But if it was like that bad, it's like we could have done something about it, and you didn't have time.
But if we grow this thing, if we grow this economy, if we grow, if we empower, the energy sector and the AI sector and the Web3 sector, and we really just like push forward technological change, like the pie's gonna fucking grow massively. It's gonna grow huge, which is a very legitimate argument. And that look, he's actually claiming here for number 3, he's saying the largest welfare reform in history, cutting almost $2 trillion in spending net. So I assume this is over time, not just in 1 year. But he says item 1 alone, border security plus deportation, makes this the most important legislation for the conservative project in the history of the nation. I do somewhat agree with that. I mean, that is extremely important. So based just on this, like if it's either a yes or a no, I'll take a yes because like it's better than the default option of losing all the tax cuts and then not getting the immigration stuff through, not stopping all these criminals and stuff, people from pouring into our country. And stealing from our entitlements and all these other things. And number 3 is like, yes, they are cutting things. They are, when it comes to welfare reform, when it comes to, cutting, why are we paying $20 billion for fucking sodas for kids? I mean, like that stuff needs to be cut, right? So like these are, it seems like they are making some cuts. There's some Medicaid cuts. There are illegal aliens on Medicaid taking from these things. So this will somewhat be a benefit. I'm sure there's a lot more though that they could cut, which is a legitimate argument from the other side.
So it's $75 billion for the border control, which I'm all for, but it's an additional $150 billion of military spending. Where like that seems a little excessive.
Yeah, we could probably cut that. Honestly.
Yeah. So it's like it's stuff like that where it's like, oh, okay, we can maybe get some leeway on that. I'm going in and out, but we could probably get some get rid of that, especially with like all this drone technology that's coming out. That should make things cheaper within the military. We don't necessarily need to be spending more money on military. But
yeah. So this is where he kind of explains here too as well. He says, for those saying do separate bills, each would then require 60 votes, needing Schumer instead of 50. Reconciliation is a special process each fiscal year where you can make fiscal changes with 50 votes. That's why BBB is the vehicle for tax cuts, deportations, and welfare reform. So it seems like they're going to use this reconciliation process to make these fiscal changes with only 50 votes, because if they try to do separate things, apparently that would require 60 votes to do. And you'd need to get Democrat support for that, which is non-existent. They're not going to support anything. They're completely obstructionist. They have no, that's just what they do. They just say no to everything. They don't want to negotiate. They don't want to work across the aisle. You're not getting what you got under like a Clinton administration, which is sad, because they could actually get some things they wanted because Trump is a deal maker. He's willing to make deals. So, but that just kind of shows you where we're at right now. Let's see here. Let's move along to the next topic. Well, actually, he actually had more comments on that. I'm gonna pop back in there because there was some. I just realized he commented under the post. The one wrinkle of reconciliation is you can't make discretionary cuts, e.g. the bureaucracy, just mandatory. So that's what I was trying to say. Like, you can just do mandatory things. You can't do discretionary. Discretionary cuts happen through a separate process known as rescissions, also 50 votes. BBB was designed by President Trump and his allies in Congress to deliver on his core campaign pledges to voters, and that is exactly what it does. This is the most MAGA bill ever passed by the House, and it is not even close. Certain libertarians in Congress who are not MAGA have their own agenda, and it's not yours. So I really do think they should try to work with the Rand Pauls and the Thomas Masseys. They shouldn't, this direct head-on attack is not conducive to success. I think they should extend an olive branch and say, hey, what specifically can you identify that you would like to see cut from this bill? What would help get your support? Maybe they've already tried that. Maybe they just said, no, we're not going to negotiate at all. But I don't know. I think that would probably be a better strategy, the strategy of attacking them, who I think I personally find Rand Paul and Thomas Massie incredibly principled individuals who really always stand up for liberty and freedom. So I'd much rather have them as an ally instead of alienating them as part of the overall base of the party. That's just my personal opinion there.
Apparently, Rand Paul seems to think that they have 4 votes within the House or within the Senate that could, basically make sure that this bill doesn't pass. It's him and 3 other guys.
Yeah,
and so he's like, we can basically write this bill the way we want it to because they need our votes.
I hope they do. I honestly hope they add some cuts and they negotiate and they figure it out, and that's kind of, in the Senate, it's probably a little easier because there's less people. So you can negotiate with 3-4 to try to get some of the stuff we want. And I think if Rand Paul and Thomas Massie find some reasonable things that are like, hey, we can cut this, I don't think, obviously you've got the Murkowskis of Maine and some of these other individuals, but if they go on TV and they just explain, hey, this is what we want to cut, I don't see why this is controversial. This is obviously a waste. We can reduce this. This is what the spending was in 2020. Here's what it is in 2021. Here's what it is today. It doesn't need to be 3 times as much. This makes 0 sense. If we just reduce this by 10%, that will save taxpayers a lot of money and that'll get our votes. So I hope to see some of that, more communication, less fighting and arguing, more communication, and less name calling and you know what I mean, more productivity. So hopefully we can see that.
Elon just shared this Kill Bill.
He's a Kill Bill.
and then shortly before he said, "Call your senator, call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay. Kill the bill."
Haven't seen as many Trump thank you Elon posts recently.
Yeah, they're obviously on the other side. They're on the opposite sides of this equation, right? So can we come to a obviously Elon probably got a taste of just how bad the bureaucracy is. He's got a taste of wow, there is so much corruption. He's working with the Doge team. He's like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can't believe how bad this is. So he's looking at this bill, and even though it's mandatory spending that they haven't even got a chance to address, he's probably like, there's no fucking way. There's just so much fraud here, which we all know. There is. There's massive waste. There's massive abuse. There's massive fraud. Paying, I'm sorry, but paying $100 for a paperclip, that's fucking fraud. A $411,000 trip for Lindsey Graham to Ukraine for like a couple days. Like, I don't see how that's justifiable. I can't see, maybe I'm missing something to me here, but that looks like fraud to me. Like, that's something fucking fishy is going on. It just feels that way. Now, somebody could disprove me and have information and say, oh no, they needed the military to like support because there's war going on. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but like, to me, that's crazy. That's kind of my thought.
And he was projecting $2 trillion in cuts before he even got into the Doge thing. He saw the books, and for the smartest guy in the world to only be able to cut like $150 billion, he just saw so many red flags or so many stop signs, being like, I can't even touch that. I'm sure there actually were $2 trillion cuts available, but like to actually be able to get that passed, he was like, this is an impossible task.
Yeah. Interesting. I thought this was an interesting little interview with Jamie Dimon. Usually he's we're going to listen to it and react to it. I bet you he's going to plan.
Just a list of.
He's probably one of the few people that I think that like the Democrats, in order to save their party at this point, they need to find like a moderate, reasonable person to like
President.
For president, for the next election cycle. And like, I think Jamie Dimon could be that person. Paul, can you play that video?
Just a list of stuff. Okay, we have to acknowledge the grievances that have put us in this position to start with, and they're real. Okay, immigration. What the hell were we doing? The bottom 20% of our population. Their wages didn't go up for 20 years. They're dying 7 years younger. When administrations, the Biden administration is giving all this money to EVs and cars and wasting a lot of money on green stuff, which isn't going to work, and all that. Do you think people in rural cities, do you think people in inner cities thought they were getting anything? Do you think that those people think that the American government is fair and competent and that this was in their best interest? Their schools don't work. They're not getting the skills they need, and you heard that just now. So we got to acknowledge these. And I also call it blue tape, because Republicans, you generally don't like red tape. You understand the devastation of it, but most Democrats, they love it. They want more of it, and they want to make it so confusing you can't even meet the rules, so you get punished and fined afterwards. Just a list of stuff.
The fucking nail on the head there.
Saying the quiet out loud.
Say the quiet part out loud. That was a really impactful last part of that statement, because it hits the fucking nail on the head, and that's the problem. That's what we're seeing. Like, for example, like just for an example, like this whole CHIPS Act that the Biden administration pushed through was like, just the idea of it is like, hey, that's a good idea. We need to incentivize this for national security. But then when you like look at like what you needed to like do that, it was like, this is a fucking like, this is insane. There's like all this DEI stuff in it, like institutionalized racism that's involved in it. Like you have to jump through 5,000 million hurdles. You have to talk to a committee to go to the next committee to go to the next committee, and there's 50 bureaucrats on each committee. And one of them wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. You need to go back to the pre. Like, this is the type of bullshit that just kills a fucking an empire. Like no. So Thomas Sowell has a famous quote that like it says like, the problem with the left is they judge the policies based off intentions instead of results. And like that just like is so true that like, yes, you can have the greatest of intentions, but like if your policy sucks ass and you're creating all this fucking blue tape and all this like, qualifications, all these things, all you're doing is wasting people's time, money, and you're creating failure for society. So I think he's setting himself up with some of the stuff he's saying to like be that moderate centrist that might save their party.
He's been asked a few times.
Yeah.
He's still CEO of JP Morgan, so he has to say no. But
yeah,
that would be scary as a Republican, as a conservative. That would be a
you'd have that'd be a real
formidable opponent.
Yeah. I'd have to objectively look at the candidates and be like, hey, who makes sense here? But they'll probably fuck that up and put like a straight up communist as the person like who they run next time. It seems like that's what it's going to be. It was nice to see Ross at the Bitcoin conference. So we're not going to watch the 28-minute clip, but he did speak, and he said, he posted here, 10 years ago to the day, I was sentenced to die in prison. Instead, I gave my first public speech on freedom. I wore a red tie as an homage to real Donald Trump, the man who saved my life. So promises made, promises delivered on that front. It was a powerful speech. It was,
and he was gifted some significant Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think they gave him 300. Somebody sent him 300 Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, but that's like, a lot of people, a lot of OGs really like, Ross was the one who really like, he like showed, a lot of people were hypothetical, like talking about like why Bitcoin could be useful and important, but it was all kind of like academic. like Ross was the first entrepreneur who really like took a risk and put it on display, and like he paid the price. He really did. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, he paid the price. So a lot of people are incredibly thankful to him in a lot of ways. So I'm not surprised that somebody sent him some funds to get going and get back operating again.
Donald Trump might have saved his life, made the decision to get him out, but I would think that I would have liked to seen like his mother like get some respect.
No, she did. Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah,
I mean, she was out there at the Bitcoin Day Miami.
Man.
She's been out there, trying to get him out since.
Yeah. Oh, she has. She's been.
Getting signatures, petition, going out individually, talking to people, and yeah.
All right. Hey, Paul, do we have a live chat going? Anybody have any questions? Want us to talk about anything? And curious about any topics? We can keep posting there. We don't have any Bitcoin conference tickets to give away just yet because that's a year away. But we do. You know what we should do is start giving away the Bitcoin Tampa tickets because that's upcoming. So Bitcoin Day Tampa is a really cool little one-day event, and we can start giving away tickets for that.
Sounds good. For the next one, I'll make sure to queue that up.
Yeah, we'll queue that up. But if anybody wants one, shoot us a DM. We will give one lucky individual a ticket from today's podcast. So
when is that?
That is, I think it's in a week or two, right? 2 weeks. If anybody's in Florida and wants to check it out,
June 14th.
June 14th. So yeah, about 2 weeks, about almost 10 days, 11 days. So.
Got quite a few awesome speakers from a Florida senator who's going to give us some clarity on why the Florida Strategic Bitcoin Reserve didn't go through, and also Gary Cardone, CJK, Charlie Shrem, lots of good speakers.
Hell yeah!
Unfortunately, no Matty Ice this year.
I'm sorry. I'm going to be on vacation with the fam. Gotta spend some family time. It's been a lot of action. It's been a busy year. I'm gonna pull up this final take. Maybe we can close out on this. I thought it was really interesting. From Brian Armstrong himself. If the electorate doesn't hold Congress accountable to reducing the deficit and start paying down the debt, Bitcoin is going to take over as reserve currency. I love Bitcoin, but a strong America is also super important to the world. We need to get our finances under control. Pretty powerful statement there. As you see here, you can look at the World of Statistics article that was shared. You can really just visualize over time. I'm going to open this up and show more. You can visualize just how insane it's 1971. I mean, you can really see it, right? Like from 1971 and just onward, you just see this massive. After like the first 5 years, it was kind of like, okay, from 1971 to 1978, 1979, it kind of like it doubled, which is like drastic in 4 to 5 years, like literally doubled the debt. But then like after that, it just starts to increase exponentially, where it's like, boom, from like 1985 to like 19 to like 2000, you just boom, you're just drastically, you're 3xing it. And then from there, just in the past couple of years, I mean, look from like 2000, like
2008 on
to like it's just increasing at scale, exponentially increasing. The debt is just skyrocketing. And the way out of that is going to be likely the money printer, right? That's how people are going to lose in real purchasing power, and nominally these debts are going to be repaid with printed money. But that also bond traders can see that, and they can feel that, and there's not going to be a lot of demand for U.S. debt if that is the way out of the situation. So getting our fiscal house in order is absolutely important. Do you guys have any thoughts before we close out here?
I mean, just going back to this BBB bill, that's going to push out, trillions of dollars on top of these numbers here. And we're already going to be running like a $2.3 trillion deficit at the end of this year. It's like, if countries already don't want to buy our 10-year bonds or 30-year bonds, like you add another $3 trillion come 2026 to this $36.9 trillion, you think that there's going to be any countries that want to buy it then? No. I mean, we need to convince other countries to buy our debt, or else we can't fund our government. So
well, stable coins could be a potential answer to that. I think they're growing, and the Genius Act, I believe, did pass. So we are going to see some traction temporarily on that front. But the question is, how long will that last, right? Like we do have to get our fiscal house in order. But that is looking increasingly unlikely. But we'll see. Maybe the Bessent approach of growth, it will help. But Only
Also,
time will tell.
Isn't there some irony with Armstrong? Isn't there some issues with Coinbase going on right now? It's like, shouldn't you figure out your own house before the U.S. house?
I don't know if they're having any issues recently, but I know a lot of people were like,
I
"Hey,
think they
why
got
don't you guys have
hacked,
one
right?
big? Why don't you?"
Inside.
I don't think so.
It was an inside job. Someone that worked there.
Oh, really?
Leaked information. Yeah, and it was like
Oh,
$20
that-
million
yeah.
bounty.
Yeah. So they essentially what they did was they stole the customer list, right? Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah.
So this is just more reason why KYC AML sucks as a policy, because it just puts more people at risk. You're just creating honeypots for criminals, right? Really, government shouldn't be forcing companies to basically play a police officer. There should only be investigations if there's a fucking, a crime or suspicion of a crime or actual evidence that supports collecting everybody's personal information. But they've essentially deputized all these organizations, whether it be banks, whether it be exchanges, whether it be even companies just in general, to they've deputized these companies to essentially turn into police authorities, and they're not police authorities. They have no business storing people's personal information, and it's routinely hacked and stolen from. So you're actually trying to solve a problem. This is another prime example of the Thomas Sowell quote. The intention of the policy is like, okay, we need to be able to stop criminals and protect people, but you're actually not stopping any criminals, and you're making honeypots for criminals to actually do more harm than good. So these policies actually are not actually evaluated. They're actually causing more harm than good on a large scale. So that's a hill I'll die on. The evidence really seems to show that we're seeing massive amounts of fraud, hacking, identity theft, all this stuff. Industries are being created because of this issue, and it's all at the root. The root of it all is the government is requiring these things, right? Which is probably unconstitutional to begin with. Yet here we are, right? The founding fathers would be rolling over in their graves if they saw the Bank Secrecy Act and all these other things that were happening, and just the massive violations of the Fourth Amendment that are occurring at scale every single day. And on that note, guys,
Hold on.
Yeah, what do you got?
Do you want to talk about this Mitchell
viral
moment?
Yeah, we interviewed Mitch from Blockware at the Bitcoin conference, but we'll release that interview soon, I guess. But I guess we can play this clip. It's
Mr. Saylor, huge fan of everything you've done. Does the strategy?
So just to set the stage, during the Bitcoin conference, someone asked Michael Saylor about proof of reserves. Did you guys see that clip? It went pretty viral.
Yes,
That happens to be Mitchell, who we work with, and we also have an interview with. But he didn't plan this. The mic was going around. He sees this opportunity. That's the only question that came to mind. So he asked it, and it went like wildfire.
Do you have any plans to publish their on-chain proof of reserves?
Yeah, proof of reserve. It's an interesting thing. Let me make the following point. A lot of people learn stuff from FTX and Mt. Gox, but I'm not sure they learned the things that the institutional community needs to learn going forward. The current conventional way to publish proof of reserves is an insecure proof of reserves. It actually dilutes the security of the issuer, the custodians, the exchanges, and the investors. It's not a good idea. It's a bad idea. It's like publishing the address and the bank accounts of all your kids and your phone numbers of all your kids, and then thinking somehow that makes your family better. It doesn't make your family better. So no institutional grade or enterprise security analyst would think it's a good idea to publish all of the wallet addresses such that you can be traced back and forth and every future transaction can be traced. I would say go to the AI, put it in deep think mode, and then ask it, what are the security problems of publishing your wallet addresses and how might they undermine the security of the company over time? It'll write you a book. It'll be 50 pages of security problems. So the problem with proof of reserves, the way that people do it right now, is it's first of all, it's a proof of assets that is insecure, and it is not a proof of liabilities. And so if you really want crypto security.
Interesting. So the Bitcoin community is not going to be happy with that response for sure. But in a lot of ways, he's not going after the Bitcoin community. He's going after like institutions and institutional adopters and new other publicly traded companies, etc. where they have like audited accounting statements. So I kind of disagree with some of the stuff he said, but I agree with other stuff that he said, where it's like, I get what he's saying, because like, you don't want to like know, hey, all these Bitcoin is in one wallet, right? Like it's just in this one wallet. And then like, that's like a honeypot in a lot of ways, right? Like that address is going to be the very first address that, people with quantum computers are going to be targeting, right? So there's that aspect of it. And there's also like, hey, if I know this one address and it's associated with Coinbase custody, and all I got to do is like infiltrate their custody process, and I can do one big heist and be set forever, right? Like, so I get what he's kind of trying to say. And what he's saying is like, hey, you can look at the asset side, but like, what are the liabilities, right? Like MicroStrategy is they're borrowing to buy more Bitcoin, and like those are liabilities, right? Those loans need to be repaid at some point. So even just looking at that doesn't tell you the full picture. So that makes sense. That being said, I'm sure there's a way you could do this that would appease everybody and offer maximum transparency. So in some ways, that's a little bit of a cop out. And I think I sat down and talked with Mitch, and he kind of like made a lot of these points to me that like he gets what he's saying. But I finally pinned down Mitch at the end. I'm like, Mitch, like at the end of all this, like if you were Michael Saylor, what would you do? And he's like, I would have transparent proof of reserves, like, but the question is just in the implementation of that. I think Saylor needs to sit down and really kind of think about that, and how he can figure out a way to offer that transparency, but also do it securely, right? Like obviously you don't want everybody to know how much is in your bank account, but this isn't just your bank account. This is like a publicly traded company. So, there's a lot of nuance here.
I think it's a great question. I think that Saylor was maybe not ready for a response, because this response goes like another 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He like really drags on, because he's like, holy shit, I haven't really thought about this. Or if I have, like,
he's not used to people asking him. He's not used to people asking him like critical questions.
The hard-hitting questions.
The hard-hitting questions, yeah. So kudos to Mitch on that.
So he keeps all his Bitcoin in one wallet?
I don't think he does. I don't know. I think there's been some on-chain research where they've kind of like said they've identified 90% of the Bitcoin, but like, who really knows, at the end of the day? But I don't think it would, honestly, at that scale, I don't think it would be wise to keep it all in one wallet. And I don't think it would be wise to use just one custodian for all that Bitcoin. I think you should be spreading that across multiple custodians, have different types of custodianship, that's my personal opinion.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's a coincidence. Jack Mahler's like the day after this started showing his wallets with 21 Capital, and he has multiple ones. Like, okay, look at this one. Here's my proof here. Here's my proof here. He didn't mention the Michael Saylor stuff, but it was like all too coincidental that he's showing. No,
he used it as a differentiation strategy
for sure.
Yeah, he kind of gave Mitch a wink apparently at the thing and said, "Yeah, you're going to see an announcement in the next couple of days that exactly what you've pretty much said." So yeah,
but like you see,
that's
the
popular Bitcoiner, take, right? But a large portion of Wall Street and publicly traded companies, et cetera, like institutions, Saylor's response is just fine. It makes sense, but to the Bitcoin community, at the Bitcoin conference, that wasn't going to go over too well.
No.
When transparency is a big part of Bitcoin, people have to remember Bitcoin is different things to different people. To some, it's pristine collateral. To some, it's borderless money. To some, it's an insurance policy against the status quo. To some, it's a Ponzi scheme or a get-rich-quick scheme. To some, it's sound money that protects you from inflation. There are all these other, Bitcoin is like this onion. You keep peeling back layers, and it's different things, right? So,
not. I know we need to go, but I mean, if enough companies start to continue to do the 21 Capital, that strategy, proof or Bitcoin reserve on their balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that in a downturn or a down cycle coming down 80%? Like
it depends on the institution. It depends on have they done their research. Like Saylor did when the price went down. Saylor kept his strategy and he was rewarded handsomely for that. So,
but there's a lot of people who haven't done their research that are going to get.
We're going to see that. That is a potential. But I think over time people are becoming more and more educated on Bitcoin, and I also think that the supply of Bitcoin is. The spigot for the mining supply is like getting smaller and smaller, and like there's only 21 million coins. So like I think at some point this supply demand, like the demand that's coming online right now, that's continuing to come online. This is what I kind of want to illustrate. It's like this demand is never going away, and it's only going to grow. And like we're just seeing the very beginning of that. They don't care, about miners. They don't care about anything else. It's like, hey, every month we're going to put 1% of our USD that we get into this asset forever, like forever. So like, doesn't matter what the price is, we're allocating 1% here. And with an asset like Bitcoin, I mean, like that that growing demand, like you're not dealing with an asset you can just print. You're not dealing with the money that can be inflated. Like you're not dealing with the stocks that they can issue more shares to dilute the shareholders. Like you're not dealing with any of those games. You are dealing with the most pristine collateral, the hardest money to ever exist. So like there's going to be a perpetual forever bid on this digital asset that is not going away. That's only going to grow. So, you know, when you say downturns, I think volatility will be reduced as time goes forward. I think we're kind of starting to see the beginning of that. And there will always be volatility, but I think it's going to be reduced through every cycle as we go forward. As more people understand Bitcoin, as more people wake up to Bitcoin, what Bitcoin truly is, I think we're going to see that play out. The game theory is going to play as nation states come in, as the corporations, as sovereign, individuals come in, as more sovereign individuals, as more, counties and states and like just different levels.
Yeah, no,
I think
I'm 100% behind that. I think that just short-term thinking, the price is going to run up significantly. It's just like when it gets to that 250 level come this time next year and pulls back to 100, there's going to be a lot of people who haven't done their research and decide to sell or get out. And actually, this is an original thought. Safety and Moose at the Bitcoin conference, he was saying this to Natalie Brunell. And I thought it was interesting because like that conference was so fucking bullish. You couldn't meet a person that wasn't like, we're going to the moon. And he was the only guy that was like, wait, this could all just like. Yeah,
it's definitely something to be aware of. It's definitely a risk vector of, again, at the end of the day, like people are looking at MicroStrategy, but like if you're getting a loan at 0%, like it doesn't matter what the price of it. If your loan is at like 0.1% or 1%, it's like,
you could have the price drop significantly. And you're still good.
It like doesn't really matter, right? Like if you don't have to pay back until what's up?
Sorry, there's a bullish signal right now that could change all our projections, and that is essentially Donald Trump agreeing with Elizabeth Warren.
That is
that the debt limit should be entirely scrapped. Right.
So,
and Alden,
like I said earlier, the debt limit is just like it's just big. It's just all a fucking game. I mean, like, there's no fucking debt limit. They're gonna print money whenever they want. Like, they're not gonna let the U.S. fucking shit default. Like, it's just never gonna happen. So, like, it's just this big. It just wastes everybody's time. Like, we all know it's all bullshit. So, like, I get what they're saying there. Like, like nothing has constrained them. So, and here's what Lynn Alden says, which she's echoing what I said. The debt ceiling itself doesn't matter much. Actual spending bills do. The debt ceiling is just a decision on whether it will default on prior obligations or not. But if someone was confident on balancing the budget, they wouldn't even care about scrapping the debt ceiling. Right? I like that. She's right. Yeah, no doubt. So, all right, guys. With that, I have to go speak at our local Bitcoin meetup. It's been about a year, 2 years since I've had to speak at our meetup. We've had so many guests and speakers and like
a presentation or just like Q&A.
Yeah, I'm just going to do like a Q&A. I'm going to riff and we're just going to talk. People have questions, Bitcoin. We're going to help people set up wallets, whatever they need. I'm there. Nice. So, all right.
It's the first Wednesday.
It's the first Wednesday of the month, baby. Are you cool. Hopefully you're coming over. All right, guys. With that, it's a wrap. Thank you.
The Runway.